Hi everyone, I'm Stephen and welcome to Audio Nautica. Today I've got on the bench this Marantz SR320 receiver from the 1980s, precisely 1984, because that's when my family bought this receiver. It was our first proper hi-fi and it's the last piece remaining of that system. The rest of it has all gone. So I'm told that this is dead, that it doesn't work anymore. So we're going to see if we can breathe any life into this old girl and yeah, go from there. So I've already got the dim bulb tester hooked up, and so power on. Okay, well that's good. There's no catastrophic shorts, so I think we can take the dim bulb tester away. And it's not an open either. You probably saw it glowed for a little bit there. Okay, we plug him into power. Alright, well, the power light comes on. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the power light is on. So it's not dead, completely dead. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a signal into this and get some speakers hooked up to it and see what it does. Okay, we have now got speakers and a SIG-gen hooked up to this thing. So let's see what happens. Okay. That's encouraging. Okay. Alright, so obviously we have a very crackly volume control. Let's just see if we've got left and right. Okay. Oh well. That's sort of not the end of the world. It seems to, actually seems to kind of more or less work. Which is not what was reported to me, but that's okay. But this thing is 40 years old. It definitely is going to need some TLC. It's been in a salt air environment for a while. You might be able to see just like the top of these buttons here, like they've turned green. That's corrosion just from the salt air, just horrible. If you love electronics, don't live near the beach. That's all I can say, because that's what's happened to this. So anyway, it is working, but it is going to need some TLC. So I'm going to have to get the lid off and have a look inside and see where we go from there. The other thing too that I've noted is the dial cord. It feels terrible as well. I mean, it is turning, but that's supposed to, it's certainly not supposed to make that noise. And well, it still sort of slides, but if I just fling that knob, you should get that weighted slide, and it's not really doing that anymore. I remember it used to when it was new. So that will all need some TLC. Obviously I haven't tested the tuner at all to see whether it still works or not. My recollection is that ages ago these LEDs stopped working. So if we're going to do this, we might as well try to get it working properly. So I have to see if I can resolve that. And there's also, then there's the turntable input as well, which as far as I know it was working. So yeah, anyway, that's where we're at. So it is encouraging. I was kind of a little bit fearful, like this thing's got an SDK module in. I was a bit fearful that the SDK module might have died or something. So that doesn't seem to be the case. So that's something. There is life. So we'll go from here and see where we end up. Okay guys, so This is actually looking really encouraging. I've taken the covers off this thing, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time the covers have been off in 40 years, but this is actually looking really nice inside. It isn't really all that dusty or filthy, and I can't really see any signs of corrosion inside. The circuit boards look clean, which is really good because, as I said, this has come from a salt air environment. But like, I haven't touched this, I've just taken the lids off. There's hardly any dust inside at all. Look at the little bit on top of here. And that's great for 40 years. So I'm going to give this a bit of a clean up. If I just turn it over, we have a look at the bottom side. That looks really clean as well. I'm really quite happy with how that looks. So fingers crossed, all this is going to need is just a bit of a clean up. I did a little bit more of a test, and it seems to more or less work the way it's supposed to. I tested the FM tuner, that all seemed to work. And even the little LEDs on the tuning section down here seem to work as well. My recollection was that they didn't work, but they do seem to work, so that's good. So yeah, I'm going to give this a clean up now, and I'll be back when I've done that. Alright, so I think I've given this a fairly decent cleanup. The front panel came off pretty easily actually. Those knobs just pull off, and it was only 4 screws for the front panel. So that enabled me to get in and give these little caps a nice clean up. Knobs have cleaned up quite nicely. So that's pretty good. So I'll just whack the front panel back on, and I'll be back then. Okay, the front panel's back on now. All the knobs are back on. That's looking much cleaner than it was. The bottom panel's on as well. So all that I think is left to do, certainly initially, is I just need to clean those pots. So to do that, I'm just going to use this CO contact cleaner. The reason I like this stuff is because it leaves absolutely zero residue. You should never ever use something like WD-40 for this. It would just be a disaster. And even deoxit, I'm not a big fan of deoxit for this. It would probably be okay, but deoxit does actually leave a small residue, so my preference is not to leave any residue at all. So I can just spray some of this in here as I turn the pots back and forth. And hopefully that will solve our crackle problem. So that's the volume knob. Now, the balance knob, not that I really use that one much, but we'll give that a bit of a go as well. That looks fairly sealed, that's the input select. But the bass and treble, those are pots, and they were playing up as well. Actually feel them sort of like freeing up as I do that, so that's good. Yeah. Looks like they are 100k pots, it would seem, based on the writing that's on top of them. Alright, I'll just let that dry out and we'll hook it up and see if our crackle's gone away. Well, that seems a lot better. There's a tiny little bit of crackle, which is not unexpected. Use will probably help with that, but tiny little bit of crackle, but it's far improved on what it was. So Yeah, it all seems to be working. I'll need to test this with some proper audio and some proper speakers, I think. But it's looking really encouraging. I haven't tested the phono in, but I'd expect that that will work fine. So I just need to do a little bit more testing, but I'm really inclined. I mean, I know some people would say that you got to replace all of these capacitors, right? It's 40 years old. They're going to die tomorrow. Well, I don't really agree. I mean, they might. It is possible. Let's turn the mains off there. But, you know, these ones look fine. There's no bulging. Okay, I haven't tested them, but there's no sign of those failing. And my understanding from what I've seen is the ones that are actually much more likely to fail is these tiny little ones, because they just, you know, they've got much less mass and they tend to be more susceptible to heat and to drying out. But this thing has never had heavy use. There's no sign of any of those capacitors actually failing physically. And the unit is working. So, you know, yes, I could pull some of them out and test them. But I think that's just going to be a waste of time, to be honest. And for what this receiver is, for its age, its value, I just don't think it's worth the effort to do that. The other thing one might potentially look at is refreshing the heat transfer compound, but that looks fine to me. It's all pretty, you know, as soon as I touched it, it started coming off on my fingers, so it hasn't dried out. So that's perfectly fine. And just with a bit of lube and cleaning, you know, this now dial mechanism now feels the way that it's meant to. There's no noise, it glides well. So that's all fine. I just think if I test this a little bit more and it's fine, there's not any point in putting any more effort into it. Okay guys, I am back, and obviously the lid is not on it. I took it away, plugged it into my system, tested it. It was all going well until I tried to play a record, and the phono input is dead as a doornail. So that is obviously what the problem is with this thing that we're trying to fix. I've got the lid back off, and it's just got a simple op amp. This is the phono board here, and you got your 8-pin op amp here, and there should be plus or minus 13 volts. So that should be one, should be there. And the other side of it should be there. And that is not 26 volts. But if I come down here, oh, 28 volts, close enough. So I get 28 volts there. We've got this track here, which is looking rather dark, unlike all the other tracks. And that track is supposed to carry that voltage up to this pin here. So it would appear we've got some sort of a signal integrity problem. Now if I kind of like just touch the outputs, that's one output. I think that one there, that's the other output there. I get crackling on the speakers when I touch the outputs. So I'm satisfied that I've got signal integrity from the output of the op amp into the amplifier at stage itself. So I don't believe it's anything like the input selection switch or anything else like that. So it seems that the problem is on this board itself. And at this stage, it's looking like there's a problem with voltage not getting to where it's supposed to be. But this board is looking pretty scungy. I really don't like the look of the solder joints look pretty awful as well. This is kind of like facing up, and it's directly above the ventilation hole. So you would have had sort of like salt air coming and settling on the back side of this circuit board. So it could be a corrosion issue. So anyway, we need to do some more investigation and see why we don't have a voltage getting to the op amp that should be. Okay, so I have reworked all the joints on this board because, as I said, they were looking pretty awful. And also there was that open circuit track that I mentioned. That meant we were not getting voltage to the op amp. So I have replaced that with a wire, and if I turn the thing on, you can see that I now have 26 volts across the rails of the op amp, so that's correct. So if I just put my trusty screwdriver on the input on that channel, that seems fine. But this channel, that's not right. So there is still something wrong with this. There really isn't very much on this board. All there is, I don't think I showed you the schematic yet. There's the schematic, and all there is the op amp and some discrete components, and that's it. So definitely something on here is not right. So I shall need to do a little bit more investigation, see if I can see what it is. Okay guys. So it was not doing that before. One of the channels was very sick, now getting a nice hum on both when I stick the calibrated screwdriver and finger on it. And I actually have taken this out and tested it on the turntable, so this is now actually working, which is really fantastic. So I did end up having to replace the op amp that was in the phono preamp stage. So the old op amp is unobtainium, so I couldn't get one of those, so I did a little bit of research as to what a suitable replacement might be. I bought a couple of different types. The one that I put in first was this NE5532 from TI, and that seems to have worked fine, so I didn't bother putting the second one in. When I took the old one out, I put in a machine pin IC socket first, so the op amp is now socketed, makes it a whole lot easier, and if I'd needed to change it over, then that's easy to do, obviously. So I think we can declare this Marantz SR320 from 1984, made in Japan. We can declare it officially repaired. Thanks so much for coming along with me on this video. If you like my videos, you can support me over at Patreon for both of my channels, Audio Nautica, this channel, and Watch Out, which is my watchmaking channel. Please do subscribe to my channel, like, and I love to read your comments down below. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye for now.